Hello everyone. Well, it's been a while since I've made a video. The new Redstone Experiment is here, so I thought I'd give my ideas. This is gonna be a single take since I don't like editing, and I'll just speak freely. So first things first, I like that the update order of Redstone now got defined and is no longer locational. This is now, as you all know, an instant dropper line because all of the droppers get updated in order. What I don't like, what I think needs changing, is that pistons no longer get updated in QC positions when the redstone dust shouldn't directly power them. Quick explanation as to why I think that. There are many ways in which we can QC pistons with many of the components that we have available to us, but there's very few components that can actually power the piston and also update it. One such example is the redstone torch, which has a similar update range to the previous redstone dust. I think right now this is the only redstone component that still does this, so this has now been, yeah, I think the previous way it was is more useful. Then let's talk about the update order itself. We all know this case gives the left piston the priority, this case gives the right piston the priority, and this is random. I don't like this randomness, but more to that later. What I find far more interesting is this case. So what most people don't know is that the redstone dust will give priority to the direction it is coming from. And I got very confused. Why do we need the randomness in this case when we have a direction? We could, for example, just make the updates go clockwise. So if we have like a crossing like this and power comes from this direction, then first the power goes to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, clockwise. This is just a schematic. Right now, nothing goes here, but you get the idea. Mojang said they wanted this randomness because they want to avoid rotationality or directionality, or that stuff is direction dependent. And I think we can solve it with this, so that when stuff rotates, the update order is still the same. It's still 1, 2, 3, 4 relative to the build that you copied somewhere online. And everything still works. We also no longer have to think in which direction we are, if we are looking west or north or anything like that. Of course, this doesn't work in cases where power comes from above, like for example here, or a downwards facing observer, or everything. You can imagine it. So I went around and started to test it. How far does this directionality go, and in which cases does it actually apply? And my very first test was a success. This power prefers this piston and always triggers it first. Pretty good in my eyes. Then I didn't directly power the redstone dust, but powered the block below, and suddenly it's random. I got confused. Why is it random? Yeah. Once again, another test through a block, through a solid block, and the direction that the observer is sending its updates in is preferred. Then piston block from above, and once again the updates are random. I don't understand. I tried several other components. For example, representative, I've got the redstone repeater here, and it can actually maintain its direction when it powers from above or powers the block below, because in this case this side is always preferred. Why isn't this the case for observers? Now we not only need to consider for the new update order, we now not only need to consider the direction we are sending stuff in, the direction it's coming from, we also need to consider which components are doing the updating. Maybe this is also just a bug, and this will get ironed out once this had more time to like ripen. And this is just a secret value that previously didn't get exposed, and now it gets exposed as a bad value, and we can fix this. Maybe we can work around this and maintain the directionality and potentially get this kind of update structure. What I also was concerned about was the avoiding updates in case things do not go, things shouldn't get power. This of course affects QC pistons, but it also affects update order to a degree. So right here the update order is random because the block in the middle gets powered by the redstone dust, which then randomly decides between either piston. If the redstone dust is on an oxidized copper bulb or any kind of copper bulb, it becomes directional because the copper bulb itself does the updating and it is directional. This is not the case if the copper bulb is one of the two branches it can take up here. Then the upper copper bulb is selected randomly, and afterwards the copper bulb updates the piston below. I did the same test for the node block, and the node block also is directional, obviously. What I also found out is that this is random because before it triggers the node block below, it triggers these on the side and also the pistons below them before it triggers this node block. This is kind of unintuitive, but okay, let's move on. You can give priority to one of the pistons, or you can change the update order by putting a block below, a block above. And we already have a lot of variables, and this adds another variable. Like now we not only need to check the direction and everything, we also need to check what kind of block is below the redstone dust, what kind of block is above the things that I try to power, and yeah, it got rather complicated. Also, check this out. Once again, we can clearly see that it first evaluates this block, this right here, this obsidian, and then the piston below before it even starts with this block, because otherwise it would constantly be below the copper bulb, but this is random. And this also got me confused because I thought at that point I understood something about the update order, but apparently I don't. This makes no sense to me. Then we go further, and I was like, maybe I should try out what happens if I power the block directly below the redstone. And this one is obviously triggered before this one, and this one blocks the right piston. So we can see that this one is triggered first. So far so good, I thought. And then I've previously seen that I can give it priority with a waxed copper bulb or, for example, a solid block above. And I thought I'd do the same here, and voila, we can give it priority. Somewhat intuitive. Then I was like, okay, I'll test the same one level below. And here, once again, we can directly power this one first. And then I was like, I'll give it priority with a copper bulb. That didn't work out. That didn't work out. So somehow this copper bulb is updated after this piston at the bottom. But we can change that if we put a block above the copper bulb, which then means this is the range of things we have to consider in order to evaluate the update order at the bottom here. That's already pretty large. And to top it all off, there's probably also which component is firing, which, yeah, you get it. I also thought that the update order at the top and at the bottom would be the same, but it turns out that once again here we give priority to the straight direction. That makes sense to me, but on the bottom layer the left piston fires first, and this has me very confused. Very, very, very confused. Why is it the left piston? Maybe this is directional or something. And so I wanted to try it out by rotating the input. And when you rotate the input, the pistons also change direction. So this that should be prioritized by being straight is suddenly no longer prioritized and is deprioritized when we move one layer below. Why? Or it's locational and I have just been very unlucky with my few tries. We have already so many variables that we need to consider. Now the height at which we connect things also is added to everything, the height at which we input things, and which component we are using, and what block is above and what block is below. Update order gets complicated very quickly in big machines, but it's already this complicated in small machines. Just to give you an example of why this is a big deal, this is an instant line. See, there's no item in here. This, not an instant line because there's a solid block above and the item is here. And this, it's an instant line because things are happening here. Now, these are just simple cases. I haven't even begun figuring out how this all deals with height differences, etc. Like when power goes up, power goes down. And I'm already quite confused by this whole system. This is not intuitive. I understand that you guys, that you programmers, the Mojang employees, they want to make something that's location independent. Something that works independent of rotation so that when people copy it, they can just copy it. Something that works reliably. But reliability is already slightly sacrificed for randomness so that we can make things rotation independent. And you also want to make something that works somewhat intuitive. This is just the amount of variables and different cases I could figure out with testing for maybe 2 or 3 hours. If we give it more time, I'll figure out way more. I'll find even way more cases. And this is just pretty much one component and its update order. This isn't even complex stuff where we have multiple components interacting with each other. This will never work intuitively. This will never work reliably if we have to also, on top of it, wrangle randomness in our components. As you have seen before, this one here just triggered 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row. Do we see randomness all the time? No, we won't figure out that something is random. Something will randomly break. Reliability is out of the window. I just think that this whole system is overcomplicated and overconstrained. And I think you need to drop a constraint. And in my eyes, the one that's easiest to drop is rotation independence. There's something, you know it, it's the KISS principle. To keep it simple for programs. And I think this also applies to engineering stuff like this here. So I hope that everything will be kept simple. We don't have to actually figure all of this out because as it is right now, this is quite something.